Welcome, VP of Engineering for eBay, Japtit Tulsi, and he'll be interviewed by Matt Marshall from VentureBeat.
Hey, thanks, Stuart. Welcome to the VentureBeat couch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Japtit, so you're VP of Engineering at eBay. You worked at Microsoft and Google, so you've got a ton of experience at some of the bigger companies with a lot of infrastructure. And we're talking, as you know, about the latest innovations in AI and personalization and messaging. And so the audience is really interested to hear from another big commerce brand, eBay, about how you're approaching it and some of the results you've gotten. Can you? There's a lot of hype out there. Can you kind of reset here and talk about how you're approaching, how you're responding to the hype out there at some of the latest technologies in terms of your journey, where eBay is and where it's going with AI?
Sure. So I think one of the things to the point about hype, we've basically said we're only going to talk about things that we are doing or have already done. So we're going to talk a little bit about eBay ShopBot, which is one of the culminations of putting together a lot of the AI technology and multimodal technology, and then pushing it out in the hands of users using some aspects around distributed commerce and artificial intelligence.
Great. I want to get to the ShopBot, but just before, you've made, from what my understanding is, the ShopBot is kind of an embodiment of a lot of the investments you've made, and it's kind of the beginning. So you've made some investments in NLP, in semantic search, in image, right, deep learning. Can you talk a little bit maybe about some of the more exciting areas, maybe in descending order of those investments?
And if you don't mind, can I peel back a little bit? Just go a history lesson, just a tad bit. So one of the things I like to talk about is the fact that eBay in 1996 created the first open market, which was nobody had done that before. They created seller ratings and ratings and review systems, which had also never been done before. In 2007, they went out and said, we're going to go onto the mobile device. When everyone said, no one's ever going to buy on this little screen, like, who's ever going to buy anything?
It's before the iPhone, right?
Actually, they launched with the iPhone on stage.
Okay.
As part of that. So part of the investment in AI was in 2015, as we're kind of looking at where are the GPUs trending and where's computing going. AI is actually starting to happen now in real. AI has gone through many, many waves where it's kind of gone up, and then it hits the crest of disappointment and then smashes down. We do think this is the time that it actually will stay up and reach that performance level. So we've been doing heavy-duty investment in natural language understanding, computer vision, in semantic search, in dialogue management, a variety of different areas of AI to really build together something that would become a commercial shopping assistant. So that's really been the investment so far that we've kind of undertaken. And then the other aspect of this that we've kind of undertaken is this idea behind distributed commerce. Commerce is now happening in many, many different places. Over the last 15 years or so, search engines helped aggregate a lot of the users together into one particular place. Over the course of the last few years, we're starting to see that user aggregation is moving to different formats. So formats such as the social messaging apps are starting to take over, where users are starting to aggregate. Things like personal assistants on the phone, the Siri, the Cortana, the Google Now, and the Google Assistant, Google Home, Amazon Echo, they're starting to become more and more pervasive across where users are spending their time. So our other aim as part of this was spending time where users are actually going to be, spending their own precious time and be there doing commerce with them.
Great. And so right before we get to ShopBot, because we're going to show a quick demo. Yeah. Maybe we'll set it up so the audience knows what we're going to see. But just briefly, of these. Because I think the point that we've been hearing is that the computing power over the last couple of years have brought to a head. The advances in NLP, machine learning, deep learning, and so on, to a point where, as you say, we've finally hit that moment where this stuff is coming into its own. Is there one or more most exciting trends that you're seeing as the lead engineer at eBay? That, I mean, is it imagery? Is it semantic search? Or does it all merge into one big movement for you?
So I think from our perspective, being multimodal is very important.
Yeah.
Users currently interact. You and I are interacting right now. We are visually interacting, movement, voice. It's really, we're not texting, but maybe we could do that too. But there is a multimodal aspect of being able to interact. And so naturally, I think I use this as an example with you. We have a great executive assistant called Gary, and you never have to tell Gary anything twice.
Yeah.
And he's awesome, right? Totally awesome. And so, and he can understand text. I can send him a picture. I can do whatever else I need to. We want our personal shopping assistant to be something like that. It should be able to understand any and all of those capabilities pretty much across the board. So yes, in some ways there's some, you leapfrog ahead in a particular technology. Vision is right now doing amazingly well with CNNs, really helping understand imagery. But speech is almost a done deal to be able to understand and convert it into text to a large part. Really understanding human intent in text is still happening, like really understanding larger scale problem sets. So.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting conversation today in a breakout with LinkedIn and Instagram's lead engineers. They were almost saying, no, it's actually the simple problems that we're most concerned with, right? The cutting edge stuff, they were actually less interested in talking about. So let's go to the ShopBot. And so just before, so we're going to queue it up with our tech team, but before you show it, what you're going to see is just because it helped me understand the videos, is you're going to see the image, a user uploading some brands that they're interested in, right? So you'll see that on the bottom of the screen. So tech team, if you can queue up that video, we'll watch this. The other one.
Find me a Canon camera with a zoom lens.
Great. Okay. So yeah, that was the longer one.
That was the longer one.
So it was right at the end where the person uploaded the image, and so recognized the brand, and then was able to to respond. So you saw text, you saw imagery. So great. So it's been out for how long?
We are in beta. We launched late October last year.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about results and findings?
So we can't really talk about it a lot, but what I can talk about is we're finding some interesting things. We're finding some stuff like search engines have really made us think before we actually put something in a box. So a lot of the time, users are still giving us short-term, termed queries. And we really want them to give us longer, more intentful queries. And the example that I try and use is you walk into an REI, you don't talk to the person and say, camping tent black. Yeah. Like, it doesn't work that way. You actually say, hey, I'm going to Tahoe next month with my wife. I need a camping tent. What would you recommend? And then you kind of have a dialogue after that. And as you noticed in the video, that's kind of what we're trying to build, is really make it a lot more natural for you to actually be able to come in and shop in a particular situation. Specifically around vision, since we wanted to spend a minute on that.
Yeah.
A lot of work that we've done in the vision side is specifically training our image recognition for more retail-oriented queries. So, we very routinely benchmark ourselves against the other tech folks that are out there. We are not in the business of trying to build our, services that actually just leverage other people's services. We're actually building core technology. So we're training and building the algorithms that actually help us do this. We do a lot of work, for example, around brand recognition for particular items and object localization, so we can actually find that particular brand and the particular item and find you something as part of that as well. So that's been the work over the course of the last 8 months or so in beta.
Great. So before we move on from the bot side,
Yeah.
we heard from Stan Chudnovsky, the product manager of Facebook's Messenger yesterday, announcing ads as a way for businesses to reach out and pull people in. Because I think what he was essentially admitting is that they've solved the supply side, right? Which is, okay, you've got a billion plus consumers, and 60 million businesses actually launching and ready to interact.
Right.
But that the consumers are not actually using bots to the extent that they wanted, right? I think that's one of the bigger challenges they're facing. So advertising goes in, prompts people from the Messenger homepage.
Yep.
So are you seeing the same thing? That the code isn't cracked on the bot side yet? Could you talk about what's necessary for that to work to you?
Sure. So one part more abstract and one part maybe specifically to Messenger. We're about to go build a personal shopping assistant that has many, many endpoints, and that's really our intent. We're not really here to build a chatbot and on Messenger only.
Facebook is just the first.
Facebook is just the first, right?
Right.
Just an endpoint. Yes, they bring 1 billion people in as part of that. There are, as is usually the case with most nascent technologies, as was the case, that's the reason I use mobile as an example. Early on, it's very hard to explain to somebody that you can buy on this as well. We're in that space. You're in a messaging platform. You're talking to each other, and I'm trying to sell you something in the middle. It'll take some time. It's not a thing that's going to be instantly like, get ready and go. Kind of same way that mobile did. So I'm very, very positive about Facebook's ability to be able to do this, and they've been great partners with us over the course of the last year or so. At the same time, our aim in the distributed commerce space is to build a personal shopping assistant that's going to have many, many, many endpoints.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and so forgive me to ask this question because I would ask everyone on stage. And in part, it's a kind of an oversimplified question, right, or actually an unfair question because it's about the ROI.
Sure.
The companies are actually getting from these investments because of the hype, right? So if we take a step back, just look at what's real, what is actually creating results, and in part, we're getting that response that hey, there's too many variables to know what actual machine learning project leads to what results and so on, like what the size of the ROI is. But to the extent, so obviously you can't talk about ShopBot yet. It's still fairly early anyway, but beyond ShopBot, some of these other investments in terms of lifts, we are hearing from brands now, 12%. Lifts in top lines. We heard that from Diane from Furstenberg yesterday. Can you talk about ROI from some of these investments you're making to the extent possible?
To the extent possible is the keyword. I think that the way it works is we have some fundamental things we have to do. We know we have to do. We have to do these investments. We've got to do the investments in natural language understanding, in vision, in merchandising. I think we talked a little bit about merchandising as a mechanism. When you ever see a strip on the bottom of a particular page and shows you similar items or items that you should look at or other brands that you should consider and such, they do produce a tremendous amount of lift. In fact, I can't give you any specific numbers on that, but they do give you a fair bit of lift as part of that. And we do a lot of investment in the underlying algorithms that actually help us generate that.
Yeah.
How do you actually build interest categories for a particular person, for example? If I'm a sneakerhead of a particular type, how do I get you interested in a particular set of sneakerheads, paraphernalia, not just the shoe, but the laces and whatever else that goes along with it. Or if I'm an audiophile, and how do I actually build out a set of things for you? So we do a tremendous amount of work in terms of recommendations, personalization specifically, that how can we actually get it down to a place where we can personalize it down, not just at the cohort level, but down to you by presenting you, a set of things. And to bring it back to ShopBot for a second, actually, once you actually give us a size profile or a brand profile, we are starting to recommend personalized recommendations that actually show you what brands are you interested in. Here are some things that we've found for you, and proactively show you those as well. So we're trying to get it down to personalized recommendations.
Okay, great. So on the one of the things you said was you're bringing the human back as a curator for some of these experiments. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because it seems counterintuitive, right? It's the age of the machine.
AI.
You're bringing humans back as curator.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I think most people forget is a lot of the training data that goes in is very much done and curated by scientists. So they actually spend a tremendous amount of time finding the right set of data that then goes and trains the models, and then goes and trains the actual production interactions that happen. The thing that we're trying to do on top of that is bringing human expertise into it. And I think the easiest way to use that example is with fashion.
Yeah.
So you take fashion, for example, what's going to be current 6 months from now is decided by 12 fashion houses.
Yeah.
Right? They decide, chartreuse is the color that is actually going to be in, and short, leg pants, or whatever the case is going to be in, right? So for an AI to actually go understand that, it would have to actually start to watch, and it would be behind the curve to a certain extent, because it would get it at the end of 6 months, and they would use it and analyze it, and then figure out, okay, chartreuse is the color that's really valid.
Yeah.
Why can't we interject that human in up early, the expert, the tastemaker in early, and use that information to be able to do that? The REI example, why can't we take all of the information that the REI expert has in his brain and use it to form the knowledge graph that actually we build upon, that can ask the right set of questions? So when you go and say, I want a tent, a camping tent, how do I actually ask you the right answer? Are you going backpacking? Are you going car camping? How long are you going to do this? Are you a very often camper or such? Like, are you going to do this in cold weather or hot weather? Those things really become interesting, because that's what you would naturally do, and that's actually what you go up and do when you're doing the 12 searches or 15 searches. You go and read reviews, and you go read blogs or whatever else have you, to kind of understand that. So to the human expertise, to us, is very, very important to actually weave into the overall picture.
Yeah. One of the things I'm hearing over and over again is and we heard from Tony Xu from DoorDash just now, is this idea of not finding things that you have liked in the past, but suggesting things that you have never seen before, right?
That's right.
So it's, again, counterintuitive. Stuff outside of your experience. We heard it from the New York Times. We heard it from LinkedIn and Instagram during that breakout. That's one of the bigger challenges, is the serendipity, bringing the serendipity back in, which is, again, counterintuitive. So.
My favorite example of that actually is from Yelp. Yelp has made some of the restaurants that you would never have gone and tried suddenly popular. If anybody's ever gone to Yosemite, on the way to Yosemite in Los Banos is a restaurant that is a Basque restaurant. It serves Basque food.
Yeah.
You can go in, all you can eat for like $20 or something like that. Like, fantastic place. You would have never stopped there. You would have gone to a McDonald's and then gone along. So to me, that's an interesting way of how we're surfacing things that would not have ever been surfaced before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Time is ticking out, looking at 1:46. Just go back to distribution. I mean, we could ask questions all day long on this, but we haven't touched on voice, home, right? And you and I haven't talked about this, but Amazon, competitor, right? I mean, commerce. It's got the Echo. Can you talk about Facebook is early, other distribution platforms? What do you think of voice as one of them?
I think I mentioned this earlier. Multimodal is very important to us. So voice is absolutely part of it. In ShopBot, currently, you can actually talk to as well, as an example. Endpoints like Home and Echo are absolute great endpoints for us to partner with and kind of build upon. And if you actually look at the overall ecosystem, it's actually growing, right?
Yeah.
And so the question always becomes is how much of it can you partner? And we absolutely, as an open marketplace in eBay, want to partner with any and all people around in market. Absolutely, and that's one of the whole concepts around distributed commerce.
Okay, great. Well, Japjit, sorry we're out of time. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers.